back once again, everybody. Glad to have you with us again today. And as usual, I have here sitting with me, ready to go, looking super excited for what's ahead, Mr. Sandy McKay. How's it going?
Fantastic. How's it going with you?
Excellent. Couldn't be better. I'm ready. I'm feeling really excited today.
We were talking earlier. I think this is one of the rare days that Canada's hotter than where you are, maybe. I could be wrong, but we're summer here in Canada. You're, I guess, summer down where you are. Is it summer there too? Yeah, right?
No, well,
there's always summer there.
Sort of, yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. But it's sort of going into rainy season right now. So we've had quite a bit of rain. Has cooled off a little bit. It's still like now it's very humid, but you know I'm not complaining. But I don't want it any hotter, so you guys can keep that. I'm fine.
Well, there's a lot of people complaining here so far in my day. I've heard a lot of people complaining. It's always funny, 1 or 2 days a year that are scorching hot, and people want to get out of here.
Just wear the right attire. You just gotta, as little as possible. But other than that, I'm just super pumped. We've had the tour that I mentioned on the last show, the investor tour that we've got in conjunction with Durham REI, sold out. A bunch of people on the waiting list already.
I was going to say waiting list because I've had people ask me about it and I sent them your way, but I'm like, I don't think there's any spots, but maybe a little bit more.
We're going to have to do another, probably in January. I think we'll do another one. But this one in November is sold out. And I'm just super pumped about that. So we've got a bunch of Canadian investors coming down here with Quentin D'Souza from Durham REI, and they're going to have some fun, check out some properties, and it's going to be great.
Awesome.
So if anyone, I'm curious too, I don't know the best way for someone to get a hold of me. I guess just the email right now. We're making a website for the tours, but if anyone listening happens to be interested in joining in on something like that, maybe just send me a quick email, rob@mrbreakthrough.ca. And that way we can put another one together, and we know that for sure there's enough interest to do that.
Cool.
And as usual, guys, go over to our website, breakthroughreipodcast.ca, listen to all the past episodes, get in touch with all the past guests, and all the other good stuff that we got going on over there. Get our free gift, get on our mailing list, all the stuff that Sandy normally talks about that I just took away.
Well, breakthroughreipodcast.ca, they can grab the free gift when they sign up for our newsletter too, so you never miss a show and get updates and don't miss out, because I'm sure lots of people are listening to this now and maybe saying, damn, I wish I knew about that tour. Well, get on the list there and you'll get the first crack at things like that. So don't miss out on that. Go register for that when you get a chance today. Grab our free gift, the ultimate strategy for building wealth through real estate.
And leave us a rating and review over on iTunes, guys. That helps. And tell us whatever topics you want to hear on the show, maybe that we haven't touched on in a little while. We've been doing some really good shows lately. I think we get some good feedback and actually the getting a lot of new listeners lately as well. So just excited all around to be able to share, continue sharing with people on all this Canadian real estate investing content. So we're going to keep it up. And today is no different. We've got a great guest with us, David Giovanniello, and really excited to talk to him today. So without further ado, welcome to the show.
Yep, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm excited myself.
Awesome. Happy to have you here, and really glad, Rob, you went for that name first. Thank you. I'll probably try it here too, but I think you nailed it. So David Giovanniello is an investor focused.
You just butchered it.
I butchered it right after that. No. He's an investor focused realtor. He lives in London, working in primarily London for 20 plus years as a realtor and investor, and does a lot of coaching with investors. Multiple strategies that you've used over the years to invest yourself and build wealth. And so we're looking forward to learning more about this and your journey. Thank you for being here again. And, why don't you start out with just telling us a little bit more about how you got started in real estate and your 24 plus years in the business.
Yeah, it makes me sound old when I hear it like that, 24 years. But anyways, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on here. I love talking about real estate, and it's one of my major passions. So to get a chance to teach people and tell my story. I'm honored to be able to do that. So yeah, I've been investing for 24 years, and I started when I was 22 years old. I bought a house that was a duplex, and I lived in one unit and rented out the other. They didn't have the term house hacking back then, but now it's a little bit common that's the way people get started out. So yeah, that was an amazing way for me to get ahead, and I recommend it to everyone. It's a great way to keep your expenses down. So I remember back then I was paying, I think, $200 a month to live. So I was able to save a ton of money and be able to scale the business really early. So I bought a student rental after that and started investing in flips and brrrrs. So yeah, the house hacking gave me the huge head start at a young age.
Yeah, and I guess when I think about it, I know that I don't sound as old as you, even though I think you might be younger than me. But that was like, I think 17 years ago when my wife and I did the same thing.
Yeah,
and it's the best way to get started. I mean, especially if you don't have a bunch of money in your pocket. It works really, really well to all of a sudden go from not knowing where your next meal is coming from to potentially having more money at the end of the month, right?
Yeah, so true. And I try to recommend to anyone, especially the young people just getting started out, you don't need that massive house off the start. You can have a goal to get that one day, but the house hacking will allow you to keep those expenses down. And then it's also your first rental property. For myself, I kept that property. I eventually bought a home with my wife that we lived in and raised a family in. But I still have that duplex from 24 years ago that my son now is actually moved into as of May 1st, which is actually pretty cool too. So he's living in the same unit that I lived in my early 20s.
He's not getting off light though, hopefully.
He's getting off a little later than I did, but he still has his responsibilities.
That's super cool. It's great. It's great. Like great advice right off the hot for people to do that, or just buy a rental property somehow. Period. Depending if you're living at home, even maybe there's an option to just buy a rental property rather than going out and spending all your money trying to survive month to month. I think that's pretty good advice. And buying homes for your kids, incredible opportunity there too. When you buy those properties early on, one day down the road, 18 plus years down the road, when your kid's ready to move out. What an opportunity for them to learn and see how that benefits generations.
Well, let's talk about how you actually got into that. Was it fluke? You were just buying a house, it happened to be a duplex, or were you like intentionally seeking out that kind of investment?
So yeah, I was intentionally seeking it out, but luckily to be raised by my mother. So my mother, after she got divorced, she was basically a single mother. Working on a secretary's salary. And I watched her go from, we'd move into like a semi, she would fix the house up, and then we would sell it, say a year later, and we'd upgrade. And I saw how real estate was this amazing tool for just the average person, right? A single mom on a secretary's salary. We were able to move up. She eventually had rental properties, and we moved into like a 3,200 square foot house a few years later. So I saw the power of real estate. And so with her guidance, definitely, and her motivation, I had the mindset to get that duplex and start that way. So yeah, it wasn't just luck, that's for sure. It was proper guidance and then me paying attention and wanting to do the same.
Yeah, that's very cool. I didn't even notice it at the time, but my parents did small things like that too, where they would buy, most of the time it was just a piece of land, right? And they'd get so excited, and we'd go and like hack down all the trees and clear it, never build anything. And then a few years later, they would sell it. And then we did that like quite a few times, but I didn't clue into it, I think, the way that I should have, the way that you did, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I think that, for myself, I have other brothers. They didn't, gravitate to the entrepreneur life as much as I did, but I think you still plant seeds as a parent. Those seeds, what you do, plant seeds in your children, and they see it, and they might not pick it all up, but they're picking some of it up for sure.
Mm-hmm. What do we got?
What other properties did you invest in then? So you house hack starting out. I know there's we got a pretty long list of types of property strategies you use. Why don't you take us through some of those? So the evolution of your strategies and what you were investing in.
Yeah, so I'll kind of go through the whole evolution and to where I've found my niche now. But yeah, so I started with that house hacking, and then I was a young guy, so 22 years old. I think by the time I was 23 or 24, I purchased a student rental. So I was able to feel like I related to the students back then. And
Is this
I
all in
liked
London?
that part.
Is this all London, Ontario?
And yeah, everything pretty much I've done is in London, Ontario. So it was all in London. Yeah, so London's a great student rental market. You have Western and Fanshawe, so it's a great spot. And so that student rental created unbelievable cash flow for me at that age. Well, what I thought was unbelievable cash flow for sure. So I was living for free and then getting great cash flow from this rental. And then after that, I purchased another duplex that was in the same. It was in the student area. Well, I shouldn't even say it wasn't even a duplex. It was a single family home near the students. I converted it to a duplex, brought it to its highest and best use. So I made it to a 5-bedroom main floor and a 2-bedroom upper. So I had, a student rental on the main floor and then like grad students above it. And I ended up keeping that one for a few years and eventually sold it. I did a flip. And then at one point I got into rent to owns. There was a time where rent to owns had a place, and I feel like they're going to be coming back here when people have a hard time qualifying. But that was a rewarding thing as well. When I got into the rent to owns, I was able to help people as well as make money. So it was kind of like a win-win, and it was very controlled. And then I also purchased. I get a list here, but yeah. So I bought a fourplex that I still own today. Bought another duplex that I still own today. Yeah, so I don't want to bore people with too many of the details, but I've done a little bit of it all. And then now I kept all the multifamily, and I've grown to bigger now from there.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that down the line. Let's just transition into some of the challenges that you ran into, because that's always like a really interesting conversation that we have with the guests. I always expect it to be one thing, and then it's usually a different thing. Like the challenges are not they're not the technical things that I thought that they would be.
Right.
So what have you run into?
You run into all kinds of problems in real estate. It's not just so black and white and so easy and totally passive, especially early on when I was doing all the work. But the biggest thing that happened to me being young was that you run to a cap, and every investor has this problem. I feel this is probably the most common problem for investors that want to scale, is that eventually the banks say no more. Or you run out of down payment money. I can only BRRRR so many times or refinance so many times before the banks just say no. So that was probably the biggest concern I had, or biggest obstacle I had, was I couldn't grow anymore. So I probably took a couple of years off and just, sat there with what I had. I was pretty happy with my rentals, but I wanted more. And so I went to the route of joint ventures, which is common amongst most investors that have a lot of units. And so I brought on joint venture partners.
Yeah. And now, like, just because I'm curious on the, like I was saying, on those two sort of, that's always the challenge. That's always the answer that we hear, is the financing, right? Like I wanted to grow, and then that was one of the issues that got in the way, and here's how I solved it. But on the other side, like, have you ever had any, like you do a bunch of renos and you will buy, fix, refi the properties that you purchase. So what kind of like things have you run into on that side?
Well, I guess all kinds of things that way. So the biggest thing that I try to teach people is to treat it like a business, and your number one customer is your tenant. So I try to treat my tenants with the utmost respect, and I treat them like a customer, that they're always right. I give regular gifts to the good ones that pay on time, right? That keep their units and keep the buildings in good shape. And so early on, that wasn't the way I was, or I wasn't always that way. There was a learning curve to learn that the tenants were very important to my business, and it's a mutual respect. So early on, I did find that I needed to learn that. And also I found that inherited tenants, I had way more issues with than tenants that I chose, and we started the process together. We both, knew the expectations of each other, and I feel that that's really important. That you set the expectations and what you're going to provide, and then actually provide that for those tenants. And so I find that's really important. I try to teach that a lot.
Yeah, that's a component to, like you say, treating it like a business. Most businesses, you have a similar challenge. When you go and take over a business, you inherit whatever problems it's tough to optimize that and make it better versus starting from scratch, like kind of you're saying, starting from scratch with fresh people, new relationships. You're starting together. It's often a little bit simpler. Not always possible, but always
especially when you're buying the bigger multis like you're doing now.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing is very important is to put together a team. So I treat it like a business. So I'm not going there and trying to tinker on how to fix a plumbing issue. I have a team for every aspect of the business. And so everything's just a phone call or a text away. So the tenants are being dealt with quickly and by the proper professional. And then I treat those professionals with respect too. I pay them on time because I want them to be there for me very quickly. So a proper team all around on the buying, regarding real estate agents, lawyers, inspectors, appraisals, but also on the owning side, where you have handyman, plumbers, electricians, and the whole gamut.
Was there an evolution to that, to coming to that point and treating it that way too, or because a lot of people starting out early on, they're trying to do everything themselves, especially when they're younger in life and they haven't maybe matured in other ways around that. It's tough to get to that mindset of I should have people helping me so I can go to Costa Rica and hang out for however long you're going there, and things like that. It
100% there is a process to that, and most people right now, especially because the cash flow and the cap rates are so low, there's not enough spread. Most people do try to do too much, and then it comes across as unprofessional or costs them more money. And I actually find sometimes with some of my joint ventures, I have to have this conversation with them because they'll see maybe a bigger expense than they expected on, say, a plumbing job that they feel they could have fixed for less money. But I have to remind them it's a business. The idea is that they're investing and not putting their time. It's just money, not time. And the goal for me as an investor is to invest to create more time for my family. So me going and fixing a plumbing issue, it just isn't worth it to me. My time now is worth more than that. And people have to do that more often. Not just family, man, everyone. Your time is important.
Yeah, right. And what I have found is that I used to think I was fairly efficient at fixing things, but turns out that it probably takes me 3 or 4 times the amount of time as a professional, right? With the right tools and the right knowledge to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. The good thing is I know I'm not good at all, so I don't even try. So
that's like me
too. You're good at other things.
I found out quick I was no good either. You mentioned this interesting thing though in the markets, and they have markets evolve and over time, but in the market like we've seen for the most part last few years, pretty I know in London and most of Ontario, most of Canada, pretty tight in terms of cash flow. Very tough to make, especially the smaller duplexes, things like that, where the price points kind of got out of control in a lot of cases. And those are conversations I know I've had a lot of, and I'm sure you've had that too. And it's always like, I can't afford property management because then the numbers don't work. And it's like, how do you have those conversations with either joint ventures or investors that are leading, to buy their properties? What's your take on that? Is that, what do you do in those situations?
So for myself, I only buy, my number one rule is buy smart. So I don't get attached to anything. My process is long-term. So I wait things out until I find a property that works. And an example of that was last year in the hottest market we've had, I found a turnkey building, 14 units plus a garage with a 7.5 cap rate, mint condition property in St. Thomas. So it's possible. So I don't think you have to jump at a 3 or 4% cap rate because everybody else is. If you're doing the work to find off-market deals or to find deals, it's possible to find them.
Yeah, a lot of people will get probably hung up on the, they want to buy X amount of properties and next, this year, and they're not hitting that goal, or they see, or they see 10 other people buying, bought 10 properties this year, and they're like, damn, I'm not keeping up.
And that's true. Like last year was probably the worst for that, where it was like the fear of missing out. Everybody was watching other people buying all kinds of properties. And that's one thing for me is I always use those people as motivation that it's possible to do, but I don't get caught up in trying to keep up with them. And that's kind of a philosophy for me in life in general, is try not to compare myself that way. So I try to, I'm a fitness enthusiast, I guess. I try to take really good care of myself. My wife and I own a gym. In that industry, it's very, very easy to compare yourself to someone, and then you're never going to be satisfied. And real estate investing is very similar, right? If you're always trying to watch what other people are doing, you're probably going to end up making a massive mistake and buying a property that's going to cost you a lot of money. And the same thing, you're just never going to be satisfied in your life. So I try not to chase. I use it as motivation.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think that there's definitely, you have to look inwards for the answers to those kind of things, how fast you want to grow and what you're trying to do, because I think it should, in my opinion, all be based on your lifestyle and what you want. Like that is the bottom line. It should be all, like, as far as real estate investing goes and how much you want to scale and how much work you want to do, should all be based on what kind of lifestyle that you want to live. Right?
I agree 100%. I feel real estate is the most amazing tool for the average person to get ahead in life. And every single strategy I talked about works. You just have to find what works best for you, or what's going to get you to your goal. So a lot of times when I'm coaching people or even helping them buy, we start with the end goal to start, and try to find the best route to that, or even your personality. What's going to be best for you. You might not want to deal with student rentals or a flip or a BRRRR. So they all work, but you have to find what's going to work best for you in your situation.
So let's talk about partners in that relationship that you form to continue to scale into these bigger buildings. How do you find partners who are interested in this type of thing? And what type of people are they?
Yeah, so I have a few different partners I've partnered with, and many have done it now multiple times. So the way I found them, the first one was an acquaintance. They knew I was in the business. They wanted to get into real estate, but they didn't want to do the work. They had capital, they had young children, but they didn't want to do the day-to-day work. And plus they were scared that they didn't know how to do the work. So with that particular partner, we bought a sixplex. At that point, I couldn't qualify probably on my own. It would have been difficult. So we used private money, bought the sixplex. He had never seen the property at all. He trusted me 100% to do it. At one point, he did come to see it during the renovations, but we bird that sixplex with each other. And together, we ended up buying a 12plex in Old South London, which is probably the best neighborhood in London for a rental property. And so that was an acquaintance that just didn't want to do the work and had capital.
But he saw your track record, right? And like what you had done in the past. And
for sure, the track record definitely helps 100%. Social media is unbelievable how it connects you with investors and connects you with people. So I've been approached many times by people on social media, but a lot of times they don't meet what I'm looking for. And so I'm a little bit pickier on who I want to work with. And I really prefer to work with people who just want to put up their money and do not want to do the day-to-day work, because that's what my strength is. So I bring that to the table.
That's an important piece for people, anyone looking to do partnership, joint venture, whatever version of that. It's who you're going to business with, kind of, especially when your philosophy is pretty long-term, right? You're going pretty long into the future with that. You don't want to deal with someone that's not aligned in that vision and where you're going and mutually benefiting each other.
That's right.
Right. So I think that's a lesson a lot of people learn by doing the wrong type of partnerships.
That's right.
But sounds like you got good clarity on that and who that person is. I think that's probably as important as anything. It's just understanding who your person is. I think
that what some people get hung up on too is they feel like, I'm asking for money, right? And I'm not. They undervalue what they bring to the table. So
Yeah.
so instead of being picky like you are, you're just like, if anyone's going to give me money, like if anyone can just give me money, then I'll work with them. But I think that that's definitely the right approach. Is just make sure that you align. You know, it's not. It can end up a lot worse than not getting the deal. Let's say
That I agree with
partner with the wrong
100%.
person.
If you have the wrong person, that'll just make your life miserable right off the hop. So for me, again, it's all about creating more time for myself. So I don't want to have to now deal with an unhappy investor. So the idea is to be on the same page, show them good returns, and then they come back. So with that particular, my first joint venture, it was a 6-plex, 12-plex, and a duplex that I purchased with them that we still hold today. I have another joint venture partner that I currently hold with, and that's the 14-unit property that I bought in St. Thomas. That was at a 7 to 7.5% cap rate, which is unheard of even 5-10 years ago. Never mind in the market last year for a mint property. So again, they're very happy.
Right.
And I did many I did many joint ventures with rent-to-owns, which I feel is a really good way to do or get started in joint ventures because it has a fixed timeline, basically fixed numbers. And so it's very easy to structure it and to show the investor what's going to happen. So I usually tell people in a market that rent-owns can work to start with rent-owns if they want to get into joint ventures, because it's an easier sell. And everything's kind of spelled out for everybody on paper.
Yeah, that's a good tactic. I like that little bit of advice there. It makes perfect sense because then if it goes well, you can move on to the next one. If it doesn't,
and then you can move on to bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you've done your rent-to-owns, is it tenant first or property first?
I always do tenant first.
Okay.
For me, now property first, you can make more money potentially. But tenant first, you have a happier tenant, more likely to close on the deal because they're choosing the property. And so I have an unbelievable record. Perfect. I haven't done a ton of them. I think I've done 5 rent-owns, but every single one closed on the house.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, and that's important. And that's my goal too. The goal is to make money, but I'm not trying to squeeze someone for money, right? So I had a good return, really happy with the structured return of the deal. And now I have a person buys the home that they wanted and it all went as planned. And so that's rewarding and the way I'd rather it go.
So we'll just break it down really quick. I'm sure that most people understand, but basically what we're talking about is when you're doing a rent-to-own, if you do a tenant first, you're qualifying that tenant that they'll be able to, maybe they've got some issues or whatever, and they can't buy something a traditional way and go to the bank and get financing. But with a little bit of help, they can repair their credit and be able to purchase it with the bank down the road. So they would qualify as the tenant for you. They would go out and shop for the house. And then the other way would be to find the property first and shop that to potential tenants. Just wanted to clarify that a little bit.
Very good outline.
Why did you go into some of the bigger buildings? You mentioned you were starting out more duplex or RTOs, that stuff, and then now if 15 unit
the 15 unit St. Thomas, the 12 and the 6. So for those ones, again, it's actually easier to qualify for a commercial mortgage. So 6 units and bigger, they qualify more on the cash flow and the building itself than they do for me. So that also helps solve that problem, regarding not qualifying for mortgages anymore.
So when you find a 7, you have no problem getting the
Pardon me?
When you find a 7 cap rate, you have no problem getting financing for that.
That particular deal, people like the banks. I had banks fighting for that deal.
That's true. Yeah,
that's a better way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And then your partner's probably like, okay, well, where's the next? Let's find another one like this.
The problem with that one, my partner said we had to pay too much tax last year. That was the bigger problem, right? The tax bill was too high.
That's a good problem. Big tax bill is a good problem to have.
Yeah. I'll take that any day.
Yeah. What about St. Thomas is interesting? Maybe we can touch on that for a minute or so here, because I've heard a lot of interesting deals in the last couple of years. Out of all the places, like where There's been no places where I've heard about deals like you just said, except for I've heard a couple of people mention St. Thomas as a pretty interesting market. So it's right there by London. I mean, it seems like maybe a place that most people don't know about. It's not that big, so there's not a whole abundance of opportunity. But
it's a small town, just 20 minutes south of London, and just 10 minutes away from Port Stanley Beach. It's a nice town that got hurt by the auto industry leaving. And so the values of the homes got depressed a little bit. And so there was opportunities to make money. But it's a nice town. And again, close to London. A lot of people who work in London will live there because it is a little cheaper. So there is opportunities. But London's also like that. There are many investors that come from the Toronto or GTA area to come to London and St. Thomas for the cash flow. We're one of the last places that could cash flow, where it's still good, nice cities that you're not dealing with too many issues.
Yeah, it's a relatively diverse economy, not relying on just one thing.
Not just one, especially London's not relying on one.
Yeah. What about starting out? So what about newer investors that come to you and want to, how do you work with those people in terms of them getting started? And, we talked about house hacking and recommending things like that. What does that look like though? How do you work with them and coach them?
So originally what I'll do is sit down with someone and find out what their goals are. And so if they're just looking to buy a house, then I always steer them towards house hacking. If they're just starting out and want to invest, I steer them towards house hacking off the hop. But it really depends on the investor. But I have a basic philosophy of real estate, and I teach people my idea of real estate is to get rich slow. And I'm going to do that over a long period of time, and I'm going to create generational wealth. And so I teach them to buy smart. A property has to cash flow or I'm not buying it. And for me, cash flow would mean a minimum of 5% cap rate last year. And probably I'm going to be getting up to like a 6% cap rate as these interest rates rise. Back to where I was maybe 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I would recommend nothing under a 6% cap rate. And obviously that had to drop a bit. I also teach them to use other people's money as much as possible, especially when you're starting out. So obviously in real estate, we all use other people's money because we're using the bank's money. So I try to get them to use as much of the bank's money as possible. So if they're just starting out, they could potentially use a CMHC mortgage, 95% loan to value in a house hacking situation. That's very little money tied up in the property and they're living for free. They got to live anyways. The third prong to my five pillars would be add value. So once you buy the property, add value. And I add value all different ways. You might add a garage for more storage and rent that out. A simple way that I did with the 15 unit is I added internet, similar to a hotel. So everyone has Wi-Fi that I pay for. So now when I rent them out, I get more rent because I have Wi-Fi included. And so it doesn't cost me very much for 15 units, but they're paying me extra each person. So that's a one way to add value, but also add cash flow. And then I teach them to hold long term. And so when I mean long term, I mean, for me, I'm holding forever. I'm not selling any of my core assets. I'm creating generational wealth for my family. And so my boys, this is going to be their inheritance. And hopefully they'll be able to take this over one day. So my goal is long term. Now I'm going to probably refinance these and enjoy my life down in Costa Rica with Rob, but I'm not going to be there. My boys are going to get, hopefully a very good inheritance. So when I say long term, I mean basically forever. If the property makes sense. And then I teach them to refinance and then repeat the process. And that's how they're going to scale. So once you've added value to a property all different ways, we refinance and repeat until you get to the number of properties that you want to meet your goal.
Well, I like that you have, based on the market, this threshold, right, for what you feel like the investment should look like, and that's not just an arbitrary number. That's the one that you look for.
That's right.
When you're investing, so that's the one that you recommend to other people, and just having that in place, I think will stop the whole wrong purchases from happening.
That's right. And that's why like meeting with someone right off the hop and being clear on your goals and objectives. We're not just buying real estate for the sake of buying real estate, right? You have to have a goal in mind. And then that's where you come up to the strategy that's going to work best. Are we going to house hack? Are we going to BRRRR? Are we going to flip, buy multifamily? Like I said, they all work. We can just buy a condo. Someone can just buy a condo and make lots of money. I know guys that own 30 condos. They love it because they don't have much to do. It's very little work for them. So it all works. You just have to know what you want your outcome to be, and then you make a plan towards that outcome.
So obviously we all want the lifestyle, more freedom in our lives, but let's talk about the other things, and obviously that too, but the things that motivate you, help you get to those goals and keep you going every day.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So yeah, this is actually a really good question I find interesting, and it's interesting to me. So early on, probably not going to lie, I was interested in things. I wanted a nice car, nice house. I wanted money. And that's what would have interested me or motivated me early on. And it's interesting how fast that changed. And I find you're just chasing money and you're never happy. And so for me, what I realized is I had to have like a strong why. And I find that again for investing as well as for fitness or any other goal, the why has to be strong, or you're not going to be motivated always. So for me, when it comes to say fitness, my mom died young and I turned 40 years old. At 40 years old, I decided I was going to change my life and get in the best shape of my life. But it wasn't for like vanity or aesthetics. It was for longevity. I wanted to have energy for my sons. I wanted to be there for them long term. So my goal is I want to be as fit as possible to be with my boys as long as possible. And the bonus is aesthetics, and it comes as a bonus. And so the same thing with real estate is I have a goal to create this generational wealth for my family. And I want my boys to have, the greatest start to their lives ever. And so that's what motivates me, not the money anymore. And so I find that will keep me on track longer. And the other part of that question that I find interesting is the inspiration. So I'm on social media, not as much as most people, but I'm on there. I try to be active. I get inspired by other real estate investors. I get inspired by other fitness enthusiasts. And I try to show people not to get jealous of them when you see someone doing well or envious, to use that. When I see someone doing well, it's funny. I think I can do that. So I watch like a fitness video and a guy does a muscle up and he does like 20 of them. I can't do one, but I'm like, if he could do it, I can do it. And so that inspires me and motivates me to want to get there. And after 6 months, I was able to do a muscle up. And same thing. So right now I see a guy doing a flagpole. Have you ever seen that? A guy doing a flagpole is just like on a pole and he's like horizontal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I see a guy do that. I'm like, I can do that. I can't. I tried. I can't do it. It's almost impossible, like literally impossible. But it's a goal now. If that guy can do it, I can do it. So I use people as inspiration. Instead of envious and jealous, I use it as if he can do it, why can't I? Right. And so I've always had that mindset, no matter what it is in life. And I use those things as inspiration.
Inflection means everything in a sentence like that. Like if he can do it, why can't I? Like, or, the way that you said it, because I remember just talking about the gym and muscle ups. Like, I remember I sort of joined the gym at the same time as this one other guy. And the one day I was in there and he came in and did his like first muscle up, and I was jealous. But the reason why I couldn't do one and still can't is because I don't focus and practice and work on that as a goal. Because if you do, then you can get it done. And it's the same with like when people look at real estate and they go, well, no, I can't do that because everything hasn't been. It's unclear how to get there, right? Like you have to set that goal and then sort of work backwards from there on how to get it.
100%. And I hear that as well. I started back in whatever it was, 1999 or 98. It was easier back then. Or my mom helped me. Well, my mom never did help me at all. It was all on my own. Everyone has an excuse why it's not going to work for them. But I see people in their early 20s right now killing it in real estate. I know a guy here in town, he's in his mid 20s with maybe more units than I have. So it's possible. It's just a matter of, like you said, am I willing to focus and actually do the work?
I love that. That's awesome. I think we all need a lot more motivation. Where do you see your business going in the future now?
Yeah, so I feel like I have a really good trajectory, and it's been the goal the whole time, slow and steady. So for me, I'm very happy where I am, but obviously the goal would be to continue to grow it at the state that I'm at, the same pace that I'm growing it now. So every year buy another building if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I just wait. And the idea would be to create enough cash flow that I can just enjoy my time with my wife in retirement, and I could be anywhere in the world whenever I want to be, and my boys will be able to inherit this business.
It's funny how I hear you talk about basically like kind of slow and steady wins the race kind of quote, and even in your fitness world, you're kind of longevity is the key versus let's just go hard and hit that short term goals. I think it's really that's just it's good to hear, I think, because a lot of people will come on sometimes on our show and other investors I talk to where they're all hot and excited about what's this whatever success they've had in a year or 6 months, and they're all like amped up over it. And not that there's anything really wrong with that necessarily. It's just it can be really, really easy if you just take a longer term outlook on it. It's a lot easier. There's a lot less stress involved, and there's a balance in there somewhere. Depending, everyone wants something different, but it could be really easy this game if you just
100%. I think long term for both things we've just talked about, real estate, business, or fitness. If your goal is long term and it's consistent, slow, consistent, disciplined, it's almost a guarantee it's going to work.
Yeah.
And for some people, like I said, it's going to be faster. Or they have goals that they want quicker, and there is nothing wrong with that. But there is a lot of that in society today. That quick fix, magic pill. It doesn't exist. You got to do the work. And that's a motto of mine. I don't know where I first heard it, but I live by it. And is do the work. I teach my boys it, and I live it. You have to put in the work if you want to succeed.
Well, I think especially when it comes to real estate, like a lot of people that want to get into it, for some reason, I guess it's those late night infomercials or something, that they think that there is actually this like magic bullet that, as long as they do this one thing overnight, it's going to be very successful for them. Yeah,
for sure. And that's a pet peeve of mine, like 100%. There's a lot of people out there peddling, get rich quick. And I'm sure maybe it's possible. You can do a flip, make a lot of money, but it really doesn't exist, that get rich quick. You might get lucky, but long-term investing, it has to be controlled, done right. And, I guess everyone's definition of quick. For me, if I was to make a pretty good return in 5 years, to me that's pretty quick. My goal in real estate is 20 to 30 years minimum.
But even those get rich quicks, even if they happen to work, because for whatever reason the stars aligned, it's almost inevitable, like almost guaranteed that it's going to reverse very quickly after. They're going to give it away. They're going to right. Because you haven't put in that effort to earn it.
They haven't put in the work or the fundamentals, or you're going to see a market shift. And we're going to see that here. Stuff that worked last year for people, you buy anything, it's going to, appreciate. Yeah. That's going to be the case always. And so,
it's like,
we've been around long enough to know different markets. I've definitely seen different markets. And I remember when one of my first properties, 8% interest rates. So, that's why the goal has to be long-term for me anyway. Because something that worked last year might not work this year.
Yeah, that's great. And we kind of danced around a little bit, but you're heading down here in a couple days. So we're going to get together. That'll be exciting.
Checking on my first international property that you helped me with. So I'm excited. My wife and I, Shannon, we're going to come down there and just have a vacation this time.
Well, see, like I wasn't, you were just here, what, 2 months ago?
Yeah, I was just here in April. We were there in April. Yeah, we closed the deal in April.
Yeah. And then you get to come back down because of what real estate's done for you.
Yeah, real estate's been really good to us. We have a good lifestyle. So we went to Costa Rica in April. We went to Bahamas in May, and now we're going to be going to Costa Rica in June and a little bit of July. So,
well, when you can go there and when you go there and check up on your properties or make it a business venture, there might be some tax incentives there too. Right?
There's some benefits to that part too. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, David, how can people get in touch with you?
Probably the easiest way to get in touch with me would be my website. So it's realadvisorlondon.com. And so that
realadvisorlondon.com.
Yeah, and you'll have my phone number, email address there, and
okay. That'll be in the show notes. So anyone who needs to see it in writing, whatever, needs the link, just go to the show notes for the show today, and you can get in contact with David. Thanks very much for being here with us. Appreciate everything you shared. It was a fun conversation too.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It was an honor, and I just love talking about this stuff. So I'm glad you had me on, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday.
Awesome.
Or sometime next week.
Sandy, how can people get in touch with you?
Sandy at freedomreps.com, or they can find me on any social media platform pretty easily as well. And yeah, thanks, David. That was awesome. It was an exciting show. This is a good one. Another great one, Rob. We've got some great shows here in the last while. So add this one to the list.
Absolutely. People can reach me at rob@mrbreakthrough.ca. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.